Good day, beautiful people. This is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments. Welcome back. As you all know, I'm always here to tell you stories of miracles and stories of inspiration and giving you stories of food for thought. Today, I would like to share a story about healing, the miracles of healing and what happens. You know, we experience many miracles in many different ways. Some are ordinary events and some are life-changing moments. A lot of them come through other people that we know, or family, friends, even strangers. And some come directly, unmistakably from God. There are miracles for each of us in every life. Today's story is called A Gift of Love, and it was authored by Margaret Chelesbro. Jane Nelms awoke the morning of August 29, 1975, at her parents' house in Denver, Colorado, with labor pains. "It's time," she told her mother. She knew what her mother must be thinking. She could hear the words echo in her mind, the same percussion of pain and guilt that had felt ever since she married Chad. She not have gotten married, and this baby is a big mistake. Jane's mother didn't like Chad or the fact that he had moved out of the young couple's apartment when Jane was 6 months pregnant, and she didn't think Jane was ready, at age 19, to be having a child. After Chad left, the company that employed Jane went out of business. She had no choice but to return to her parents' home. She knew she had failed her family by making poor choices. They loved her, but she didn't think she deserved their love, or God's love for that matter. Not she, who had been rejected by her husband. She was unworthy. After the labor pains began, Jane called Chad at the gas station where he worked. "Please come to the hospital with me," she begged him. "It's your baby," he said. "I don't care what happens to it." Over and over she pleaded with him to come. He refused. By the time Jane arrived at the hospital with her mother and sister, she was an emotional wreck. She was embarrassed to be there without a supportive husband. She felt like a failure, worthless, facing a future that looked as bleak as a barren plain. After Jane was wheeled to the labor room, 2 nurses appeared. One of them was heavy-set, middle-aged, average height, with a calm, soothing voice. Her name identified her as Mary. She looked motherly and huggable, and her presence made Jane feel safe. Mary soon dismissed the other nurse by saying, "I can handle things from here." Standing beside Jane in a white uniform, her dark hair contrast to her light complexion, Mary asked, "Have you taken birthing classes?" "No," Jane replied, thinking that was one more thing she had failed to do. Mary taught Jane how to breathe so she could deal with the pain. Jane loved her calm voice, so different from the raised voices often used by her family. By 4 p.m., Jane's labor pains had intensified. About that time, Chad arrived with his parents, who had forced him to come. Mary had to tend to her own patients, but she popped in frequently to check Jane's pulse and blood pressure. When the nursing shift changed later that evening, Mary didn't go home. She stayed to be with Jane. By 11 p.m., Jane was fully dilated, so she went to the delivery room. Chad went too. He stood on Jane's left side, and Mary stood on her right. She explained everything that was happening. She tried to get Jane to push, but things weren't going so well. The baby's heartbeat began to weaken. Someone gave Jane an epidural. It made her sick, and she threw up. She needed oxygen, but she fought the oxygen mask, afraid she would throw up again and choke. Finally, Mary leaned close to Jane's face and said in her soothing voice, "You need to do this. The baby needs it." Mary's voice helped Jane calm down enough to accept the mask. "Your baby is fine," Mary kept reassuring her. "You just need to keep breathing." Mary didn't seem to care about the circumstances that had brought Jane to this place. She wasn't concerned about whether or not Jane had made a wise decision to marry and get pregnant right away. Her focus was on Jane and how she was doing. Mary continued to assure Jane that she would be all right. "They don't think there's enough room for the baby to come," she explained later. "The doctors are trying to decide if they should take you up to surgery." Mary told Jane that the doctor had been contacted who could perform a cesarean section. Her calming voice helped Jane to relax. When they wheeled Jane into the operating room, Chad was not allowed to go with her, but Mary never left her side. Michelle was born at 1:30 a.m. on August 30th. After the other nurses had cleaned Michelle up, Mary asked Jane, "Do you want to see your baby girl?" Jane looked into her daughter's eyes and examined her perfect features. "She's beautiful," Jane whispered. After spending some time with her new daughter, she handed the baby back to Mary and drifted off to sleep. When Jane awoke in the recovery room, Mary was gone. Jane was in the hospital 5 more days, but she never saw Mary again. After she recovered enough to return to her parents' house, Jane wrote thank you notes to everyone who had helped her. She addressed Mary's thank you note to Aurora Community Hospital, thinking it would be delivered to Mary, but several days later it came back with a note that no such person was at that address. Jane telephoned the hospital maternity ward. "A nurse named Mary helped me through a difficult labor," she explained. "I would like to thank her." No one by that name works here," the nurse said. "But occasionally we do hire temporary workers. Perhaps she was just a temp." After Jane got off the phone, she thought more about Mary. Could she have been an angel? Impossible, Jane thought. She had fallen too far from God, made too many bad choices. God couldn't love her enough to send an angel. There had to be some other explanation. But the more she thought about it, the more Jane realized that she had truly been given a gift from when Michelle was born, a gift of love and forgiveness, and the presence of a kind soul who walked with her through a troubled, frightening time in her life. Mary didn't judge Jane. She didn't criticize her. She didn't remind her of the mistakes she had made on the distance she had put between herself and God. All she cared about was helping Jane and assuring her that she and her baby would be fine. If God had orchestrated all that, Jane decided then he really did love her. He didn't judge her. He didn't blame her for making poor decisions. He didn't care about any of that. He just cared about her. He cared enough to remind her that she was worthy of love, that she had not been abandoned, and he showed her all those things through the angelic presence of a nurse named Mary. We all seek help. At times, we seek healing, yet it remains one of life's great mysteries. That's why it's comforting to know that there is help through this great mystery, a very present help. This is Natalie Silver with Life Treasures and Golden Moments. Wishing you a beautiful week and a beautiful month. And until next time, take care and may God bless.